We will now call the Town of Hilton Head Island Design Review Board meeting for Tuesday, November 9th, 2021 at 1:15 to order. Teresa, are we in compliance with the Federal Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Thank you. Teresa, can you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
Here.
Miss Lippert,
Here.
Mr. McAllister,
Here.
Mr. Molesky,
Here.
Mr. Karstens, I do see Mr. Karstens is here. We'll need him to work on his audio.
Okay, there we are. Oh my goodness, Lord have mercy. Thank you so much. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bassett,
Here.
Miss Foss.
Here. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
May I have a motion from the board to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll move to approval of the meetings, minutes from the meeting of October 12th, 2021. Board members, do you have any changes to the meeting minutes? If there are none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 12th, 2021 meeting?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Madam
Sorry.
Chair,
Ask, yes,
just for clarification, I'm going to abstain as I wasn't present at the meeting.
thank you. So motion passes by a vote of 6. Do we have any appearances by citizens, Teresa?
Madam Chair, for the record, public comments concerning agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the Open Town Hall portal. The portal closed at 12:15 today, and there were no comments of record. In addition to submitting comments on the portal, citizens were provided the opportunity to call into the meeting to comment. However, there were no requests to give comments by phone. Thank you.
Thank you. It appears we have no unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business. The new development for final approval, Dolphinhead Recreation Area DRB-002414-2021. Mr. McAllister will be recusing himself from this project. Chris,
Thank
you
you,
may
Madam Chair.
make a presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. The applicant is proposing renovation of Dolphinhead Recreation Area. This area was originally developed in the 1970s and is heavily used for private and public events, such as a sunrise Easter service. The facilities have served the community well, but are aged and in need of an update. The POA plans to demolish the buildings, playground, and basketball court to expand and update the facilities. A new event lawn adjacent to the building is also proposed. Infrastructure related to the building will be adjusted to serve the new building. Staff recommends final approval with the condition: revise the tree protection plan to specify a substantial specimen and significant tree protection fence, such as cyclone or wooden fence. The area is outlined in red on the screen in front of you. This is the existing conditions of the site. and demolition plan for the trees. These are the existing significant and specimen trees identified on the site and their drip lines. Grading and drainage for the site on the following, this screen and the next. This is a zoom in of the site plan, talking about the hardscape that's being proposed. You can see the playground there and its location to parking and the basketball court. This is the new building with the event lawn adjacent to it. Just along the road edge. Landscape details. The playground pavement is in this detail along with the basketball court pavement. The colors were available for your review outside Town Hall this weekend. Sign details. Planting plan. And around the proposed sign. The plant list. Architectural footprint for the building. This is a pavilion. Ceiling and roof plan for the main building. Elevations of the main building. A section through that building. Wall sections of the building.
It's mine.
Again, this is the pavilion section. Details for decks and railings. Window section or details, excuse me. Lighting plan for the facility. Colored elevations. Again, physical samples were available this weekend for your review outside Town Hall. And just some elements that are being used in the site and on the site. This is the playground paving. What it's going to look like. Again, the signage system. Site furnishings. The basketball court. The main sign. Elevation and isometrics of the arbors. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. I have a question for you. Are we to approve the signage system as well today?
The site signage system is under your purview, but the main sign is not under your purview. It falls under signage, and you do not review it.
Thank you. Do we have the applicants available?
Yes, Tim Probst from PDG Architects.
Al Theodore and Brad Hicks with Wood and Partners.
Thank you. You will have 10 minutes to present your project.
Actually, Chris did a great job reviewing our submittal package. We are available to answer any questions unless Tim wants to add anything.
No, I agree. Chris did a great job.
All right, then we'll start with discussion by the board, starting with Mr. Bassett.
Unmute there. I didn't have any further questions. Some of those that I would have had were addressed in the comments made, especially related to the DRB comment 7 about, proposed, kind of a wall area, sitting area around the the turf section. So I'm in favor of approval as submitted.
Thank you. Mr. Karstens.
Yes, I think everything's shaping up, and I think the package was very thorough. The only thing I'd ask, obviously, we typically shy away from chrome when it comes to some of the site elements, and I was just wondering if there was the potential between the foot washes and the fountains and such. I see that the bike rack and the bollard were going to be black. But the other elements were going to be chrome. If there's the potential for the bronze finish to match the building with some of these site elements. But otherwise, the palette and everything is very appropriate and well done.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky.
Yes, thank you. I mean, same thing. It looked very thorough. I love the design and love the colors. I'm excited to see the project. So it looks great to me. Thanks for all your work, everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Lippert.
Thank you. It looks like I'm going to be a bit of the outlier here on this one. I have two comments that I made also at concept that I'm going to repeat again. I think the dormers are undersized and would be aided in having one additional window on either side. I super appreciate that you responded to the concept comments. I happened to notice that that one was skipped. So you get it from me again. Same thing as the roof line. I commented on that during concept, the incomplete corner of the Dutch roof line. I think that's quite critical for the massing of the structure. I completely understand the additional extension at the restrooms, but the missing corner at the top of the ramp to me is really not helping or working with the massing of the building. And then I have a question about the service yard to the applicant. It seems like it's very large. For all I'm seeing is one condenser in there, open with a road into it. I'd like to understand if there are trash bins that are planned on being there. And I'm also concerned about the massive, just how tall and how much of it is that it's blocking views. So if you could speak to that.
Sure. The size of the enclosure is in order to allow a service vehicle to back in. The kitchen is a warming kitchen and only a warming kitchen. So for events to take place there with food, the POA is interested in providing an adjacent pad and having some separation there from the rest of the area. So it's sized for a vehicle.
Okay, so the idea being that the service yard screens the vehicle for those occasions when it's parked there.
That's correct.
And how often are they, what is their anticipation of, let's say 365 days out of the year, how often a service vehicle would be standing there?
I'll be honest with you, I can't answer that question and with any assuredness be correct, but it is a heavily used facility. Most weekends it is used. We anticipate it either increasing in use or being similarly used with the new building.
All right, well, I certainly appreciate the explanation. I still think that the service yard really is blocking the view immensely for the rest of the time. But I do understand the screening desire of the service vehicle. I still am concerned that it just becomes, because it's how it's open then it becomes a storage area that is facing the front of the park and just has the risk of becoming an unsightly storage area with trash and dumpsters and things like that. We'll see what the rest of the board members have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I comment on the other two comments?
Please.
So the dormer, if you go to the building section, it's a third of the bays and we have trusses inside and that sits squarely in there. I looked, at putting another single dormer on either side of this and it got pretty busy. So if you look at the building section, so it lines up with the inside. Now we did increase the height of it and we changed the pitch of it. So it took up more of the roof as far as height wise. So we did address it in the scale of it. So we changed the pitch that was originally at 312 to 412. And we also raised the head of that. Now, as far as the front porch, we have it stopped right there. So it delineates between the front entry and then the rest of the porch around the building. That's pretty much the reason that it stops right there. So you have a front entry element and then you have the rest of the porch.
Tim, to be clear, you adjusted the pitch of the dormer, right?
Correct. The
Okay.
regular roof stayed the same.
All right.
So that the dormer roof changed from a 312 to 412.
Thank you for that explanation. I was in no way implying two additional separate dormers. In my opinion, for the massing, extending those, having a break, much like you have at the corners and having one over window. I will say, if I'm going to put it in order of priority, I think the continuation of the Dutch roof line is my highest priority, and seeing the massing feel unified, again, particularly because of the added extensions at the restrooms.
So Annette, when we look at that elevation, you're talking about the right-hand side.
Yes, at the right-hand side where we're seeing the board and batten on the on the very right-hand side versus that roof line rotating around.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else is seeing it. Peter Christensen is raising his hand.
Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I don't have a comment on the building design. That is left for folks far more in tune than I. I'm with Christina Christian, who's the Activities Director for Hilton Head Plantation, and just wanted to address the enclosure. That building right now is the most used building of the three facilities we have by far. And we anticipate that with this improvement, it will only increase the amount of use, especially private rentals, as well as other catered events. So we anticipate service vehicles to be in there routinely when this building is renovated. And also, obviously, we have service vehicles that will be using that as a place to remove trash from the building. We have no intention of putting a dumpster there. However, folks will be cleaning the building, setting up the building, and that is a very convenient location to offload and to onload all manner of supplies. So we felt it was important to have that area screened.
Thank you. Is someone else adding? No? All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes?
Oh, sorry, just in
Sure.
response, I too, in reviewing the site plan, the current building has at least a dead side, you could say, to it. The buildings that are being used right now. With this building, it appears as though they're kind of flipping it. And so that space between this building and the playground is going to be kind of an area it's de-emphasized. If you look at the site plan, there's actually there's more of a soft path or more of a mulch path to that service yard from the parking area. So there's not going to be a dedicated walkway, it appears, from the parking into the structure. There's really there's a trellis feature that plays up the access into the playground. And then there's the pathways that access the front side of that building, or the southern side of, I guess, the eastern side of the building. So that pathway from the handicap into the service area it's a soft surface. So I think there's going to be less of an emphasis, especially from the parking area. So I think the idea of the emphasis on that service yard, especially from this approach, is going to be a lot less. And it is planted around with a lot of native evergreens or commonly used evergreens. So from my standpoint, it's going to be a de-emphasized element, hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Karstens. We need Mr. Brown to comment.
Hey, good afternoon. I support the application as submitted. I did mention at conceptual review, and I'll mention it again, I do believe there will be times that there'll be a considerable amount of overflow parking with only 44 parking stalls. But I believe that's more of a management issue with the association than a design issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I agree with Mr. Karstens on the black and the chrome. I would really like to see those two elements become the dark bronze and everything be uniform, the bike rack and the drinking fountain, if I remember right. I had also noted with Ms. Lippert's comment that the roof dormer was not added in the comments that they gave us back, which was very nice, and you made it very clear, but the roof dormer wasn't addressed in those comments, and it would have been helpful if your reason behind everything would have been addressed. I am much happier having a service yard than seeing service trucks parked out there, so I'm okay with the service yard. I think the reasoning behind it makes a lot of sense, but everyone else needs to add to that. Does anyone else have further comments or want to change their mind or add something? May I have a motion on the application?
Madam Chair, I move for approval as submitted.
Does anyone else on the board want to see the chrome and the black changed to bronze, or should we second Mr. Brown's approval?
I'd like to make an amendment to Mr. Brown's motion. The amendment is such that the drinking fountain, hose bib, vehicular bollard, bike rack, and foot wash all receive similar treatment, either the bronze, a dark bronze, or similar, to be reviewed by staff.
Thank you. Any further amendments? Can I get a second?
Can I second, even though I made an amendment to the motion?
I'll second. Teresa, please call the roll.
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
Approve.
Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett, Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Foss,
Yes,
motion carries 6-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you very much.
Thank you. We will now move on to the alteration edition of the Harley-Davidson retail store, DRB 002394-2021. I will remind everyone that this doesn't come back for a second approval due to it being an alteration addition project. Chris, would you like to make a presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is renovating the old Kinghorn office building at 32 Palmetto Bay Road into a Harley-Davidson retail store to sell merchandise, not motorcycles. The interior of the building will be gutted, creating a merchandise area in front with office space and inventory storage in the back. There will be a new gable roofed entry element added at the front door that will incorporate signage. New storefront windows will be added. The asphalt roofing will be replaced with standing seam metal. New landscaping will be added as needed. Pending review of the physical color board, staff recommends approval with the following condition. Add bollards to protect the existing live oak near Palmetto Bay Road. So the site is outlined in red on the screen in front of you. Of importance is the location of Smokehouse, which was recently been completed. This is the old building, it's not the new, so my apologies, it's an old aerial. Excuse me. And you have the Village Exchange shops behind the site with Palmetto Bay Road running diagonally across your screen. That oak tree that we're talking about is located in approximately this area right here. Staff's concern is that there's parking, unplanned parking under the tree, compacting the soil and damaging the tree. We're just going to look at some of the architecture. This is the Village Exchange behind the site. Again, the backyard restaurant, which is immediately adjacent to the site. There's the new smokehouse. Self-storage, which is the next lot over behind Exchange, the Village Exchange. So here you can see the building, footprint of the building. This is the existing floor plan, demo plan. So the new entry, again, that gabled, that was discussed in the narrative, and all this is new. You can see the existing entry down here. So those windows are coming down fairly low. The back side or the right side of the building. This is fronting Palmetto Bay Road. And the rear of the building. This is the proposed color board. Light fixtures. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have the applicants available?
Yes. Tim Probst from PDG again.
Thank you, Tim. You have 10 minutes.
I think Chris got it all.
All right, we'll start with the discussion with Mr. Brown.
Chris, do we have a tree and topo as part of this application? I was trying to find the tree and I couldn't find it on the plans that were submitted, but I did see it when I drove by and on your aerial.
No, we do not have a tree and topo, so to speak. We do have the conceptual site plan, which I'm happy to, hold on just a minute. Happy to share. The tree is located down here in this area.
Okay, I can't really tell if it conflicts with parking, but I certainly support your recommendation if there needs to be a bollard to protect it. And there's no impact to the landscaping. I didn't see a landscape plan either.
At this time, they're not proposing any changes to the landscaping. I think it's important to note that the windows do come down a lot lower. I don't know what relation that is to the existing foundation planting.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
I have no other questions. I would I would appreciate feedback from the landscape architects. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lippert?
Thank you. I think big picture, this is gonna be a great improvement on the building. I have a couple of questions. In the application, it states that the lighting selections have not been finalized. Can you speak to that, and which fixtures have any revisions been made? What's the status on fixture selection?
So we did submit the fixtures, the goosenecks. I think the only ones would be the placement of the cans. And I believe they're just going at the entry. Do we have a plan?
What would you like to look at? Is there a plan you'd like to look at, Tim?
They're shown on the elevations. The goosenecks are.
Yeah, if you can look at 8.5, Chris, that would be great. So I think it just needs to be noted that per what's described in the narrative, the fixture above the Harley-Davidson sign is said to be a different light fixture than the rest of the building mounted ones.
I believe that's just
Which I
the
think will
same.
help.
Are you're proposing that we change that? Is that what you're saying? I'm sorry.
Your application indicates that it's not that gooseneck, that it's instead a smaller pointing back. It's saying that the ones on the building facade are the type B, and then above the Harley-Davidson, that it's the type C. So
Right.
I just,
That would be type C above the sign, and the rest are the gooseneck. It's drawn. Yeah, so that would be the type B. Those would be between the windows.
okay, so the confirmation is that above the Harley-Davidson, it's the type C.
Correct.
Okay, because I think that'll help, because right now I think it feels crunched. My other comment is relative to the step and the gable. Chris, if you can go to 8.7, please. In the Palmetto Bay Road elevation, that step to me, in the added gable element, up a little bit, Chris, if you can maybe help point to that. Yes, right there. That to me essentially cuts down on the effective roof overhang, and especially since the new walls are being put on those steps, it doesn't create the low country large overhang. So to me, that should be a continuous gable without that step. Those are the only comments I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister?
Thank you. Overall, I think this is a nice project. It's a big improvement for the site. Like the direction. I'll keep my comments pretty brief to kind of hit on what Mr. Brown was getting at earlier. You know, I realize that we're not proposing any changes to the landscape, but since there's a lot of work that's being done to the exterior, I think a condition should be if any foundation shrubs or plantings are impacted during construction, they should replant. And that could be approved by staff. That way we've got some sort of coverage and you know, we know things can happen that aren't anticipated during construction. I also support staff's comments. I think the bollard is appropriate since we don't have any curbing there currently. I have one question about what color are the downspouts proposed to be? Did not see that on elevation.
It would match the roof.
Match
Okay.
yours.
Right.
Okay. I think those are all of my comments. Overall, I think it's a nice project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky?
Yes, thanks. No, I mean, I guess to keep it simple, I like the design. I like the colors. I don't necessarily mind that step in the roof there. You know, I've seen that occur before, I guess mostly on homes, but I think it adds a little interest to that, especially since it would be perceived more from Palmetto Bay Road. And I guess as far as any landscaping goes, I would just say, is there any way that we could use this as an opportunity, since we have the nice new smokehouse next door, to, you know, kind of use it as a little Palmetto Bay Road beautification project there? So this just all is kind of all, even though it's a separate project, it feels like it's still all part of the revitalization of that little area there. So anything that could be done to freshen up the landscaping, as I'm sure they would, to complement the nice new building. Otherwise, looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Karstens?
I appreciate everybody's comments to this point, especially in that Mr. McAllister, I think, hit the nail on the head, is that I don't see how these facade updates, especially changing and adding a facade on Palmetto Bay Road, is going to happen without that old material getting damaged. I think it's going to happen, that there's going to have to be new landscape, especially considering this is an existing nonconformity when it comes to the fact, you know, Palmetto Bay Road is a major arterial for the town. I'd really like to see a landscape plan, because I think it's going to have to happen, especially with the old overgrown material across their frontage. I think it would behoove the owners to just go ahead and do the landscape plan when it comes to the parking lot side and the Palmetto Bay Road side. I would say is the side that shares with Auto Spa is probably less important, especially considering there's no buffer required between similar uses or similar zoning. But I'd almost make it an imperative from my standpoint to have a landscape plan for final approval or for in this final package.
I'll remind you, Mr. Karstens, that this doesn't get to come back to the board. So would you be happy with a staff approval?
I'd be happy with staff approval, but I think it would have to, for them to get their final permit, I think that there has to be a site plan that the staff gets a chance to look at.
Thank you. Mr. Bassett?
I agree with the comments, especially landscape comments. I think it's a great improvement to the property, but looking at the landscape more closely, I think I would be okay with staff approval of that, but that is a real important facade, potentially the most important facade of the building, even better than, you know, more important than the front that faces the smokehouse. And some, I don't know how it would be accomplished, and again, okay with staff approval, but some integration on that side to the sidewalk might also be helpful. Kind of some level of connectivity there, instead of having to come through the parking lot area to get up into the building. I don't know how much foot traffic you'd have there realistically, you know, from the sidewalk, but that might be a nice element to add. The step in the gable, I'm not overly concerned about. There's a similar step on the adjacent smokehouse property that you know, looks good on that property. It makes a little bit more sense on that one because of, you know, the bumped out window section, but I'm probably not as concerned about that as the landscaping.
So, Mr. Bassett, just a confirmation of your comment. You're talking about a connection from the sidewalk here to the path that runs along the road?
If practical.
Okay, just clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with everyone. This is going to be a great enhancement to the property. I agree with staff that the ballard should be added to save that tree. Landscaping, I think we have always required or wanted landscaping between the parking and the building, so we need to bring the foundation plants back in the parking and on the Palmetto Bay Road area, and I would approve staff approving that. I noted, Tim, that you said there are 2 additional parking spaces needed, and I didn't see those on the plans. Do you know where you're going to put those?
Yeah, Chris, can you put the site plan up? They're parallel parking spots to the left side.
Oh, behind where other cars are parking?
Yeah, they're along the property line.
Hold on just a minute. I'm sorry.
That's
That's
okay.
all right.
Okay, now we're cooking with gas.
So they're the hatched, yeah, right there, 2 parallel parking spots.
Will those be lined, or will people know they can park there?
Yeah, I believe it's noted as gravel, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's pervious.
And then is there landscaping between that and the next door smokehouse property?
No, that goes up against the property line.
There is some,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tim. There is some existing landscaping on the smokehouse side.
Okay. All right. I noted that I think you called out black lights and black window mullions. Do they have to be black? Are you just doing that because?
I'm sorry, the actual windows will be the silver. They will not be black. That was a mistake. Sorry. On the actual color board we submitted, we have them as the clear.
Is it possible to do them in the bronze, dark bronze?
Well, we don't have any bronze elements, so it's either a black, which is the Harley colors, or this silver. So if you look at our color board, can we look at the color board, Chris? So that silver finish with the gray tones is what we're going for the windows.
Okay. All right, that's way better than the black. Then what color are the lights going to be?
The lights are black.
Do they have to be black? Well, I guess that's better than
It's
clear.
yeah, it's a Harley, so
Okay.
it's either that or the bright orange for the Harley.
All right, I'm okay. I kind of agree with Miss Lippert on the roof coming out, but it's not going to be a game stopper for me. So I think the landscaping is important here, and make sure the specs are changed so that we know that's a clear gray on the windows. And what else? All right, does anyone else on the board have any questions or additional comments?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Yes.
after hearing from the other board members and recognizing that this is a really important property being in our off a major arterial, I agree that it would be appropriate for staff to review the landscape plan, but I would recommend not just replacing damaged foundation plantings, but for staff to receive a full landscape plan for the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else?
Yes, if I just may ask to go back to the color board, because if I'm understanding correctly, what we saw laid out, then none of those colors apply to the project anymore. Is that correct?
No, it was just the windows. The windows themselves were mislabeled there. That picture is what the windows are going to be. All the other colors are
Right,
correct.
but what we saw laid out at town hall was
What was on the actual physical color board was that silver color.
I'm looking at a photo of what I took from the Harley-Davidson. It had the roof
Graphite.
called out as graphite, but it definitely looked like a dark bronze. Then I saw a black swatch and a cream colored textured stucco. And now I'm seeing a gray stucco on this. So I guess I have to admit, I'm just needing a moment to look at these new colors, because I had envisioned the whole project with what I saw at Town Hall. So if I can just get the clarifications, none of the 3 physical samples at Town Hall match what's being proposed?
Annette, I'm looking at the color board that was out on display, and I would call that gray stucco color a gray, not a cream.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the only thing wrong on the physical color board was them calling out the black anodized windows.
Right, the picture's correct. The black anodized is the black is the incorrect part on that.
I'm sorry, Tim, say that again.
The color, the picture of there, that silver picture of the windows, the storefront is correct. The incorrect part is the black. It's not black, it's that silver.
and just typically, we haven't approved an clear anodized silver storefront in the past because of how it goes so white. But the rest of the board seems to be on board with a clear anodized. Or is it not a clear anodized? Is it a painted gray? I'm sorry that I'm confused.
It's clear anodized.
Sorry that I'm confused, but because it's so different from what was submitted and now looks very different on the screen than what I photographed, I'm just not really sure what's being proposed.
It's clear anodized.
So where's the gray screen then? That's on the soffit.
Yes. So that's the fascia and the soffit.
So my opinion is the windows need to be darker, otherwise they turn too white and blend in too much with the stucco color that's now being presented.
Yeah, I mean, the stucco will be a darker color. It's that gray.
And that, would it be better if the windows had the graphite color matching the roof, or is that not, is that too much?
Windows only come in a limited selection, so it's black. I believe it's dark bronze, and then it's that clear or white. There's just not many choices in that storefront.
Okay.
Mike and Kay has limited selection.
For the standard colors, yes.
Well, I don't think it should be the clear anodized. And I will just say that I'm really having a hard time making a determination on the colors, since what I photographed and what I'm seeing on the screen to me are two very different descriptions of the building as a whole facade. I think the design itself is great. I'm really struggling with the colors right now.
Thank you. Am I still?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I see that you're signed in twice. If you could mute one of the devices and use the other.
Thank you.
Kathy, I think that technical difficulty on your end has been resolved. Are you okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You were on for some reason you had come on twice, which was causing that echo in the meeting.
Well, then I
So-
got kicked out saying that my 40 minutes of free service were up. So I relaunched.
You're in now and I can hear and see you.
You can see me?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't see anybody, but I'll just stick with what I've got. Okay,
Can I add any comments?
yes.
Ron Malinsky? I guess to touch upon the landscaping comment, I think just to jog everybody's memory, probably this building was originally built before we had the Cross Island Expressway and Palmetto Bay Road probably just, dead ended. So that probably just reemphasizes the importance of this road. And I agree with everybody's suggestions on the importance of putting a little more time and effort into an appropriate landscaping package for what that is worth. The second comment is that if you're able to show the site plan, that might help in my next comment here. And the direction that I'm going is, I think, once this property is completed, I could see a lot of people that are over at the smokehouse waiting for their reservation to meander over to the shop and vice versa. And I don't know if there's any credence in putting any thought into a way to kind of take safety into consideration as people go back and forth. So if we kind of look at the top portion of the property here where the handicap parking space is, and I see some striping, perhaps right in there, if someone, you're really good with that, Chris, thanks. If that kind of cuts across to Smokehouse around there, it kind of puts us close to where those additional 2 parallel parking spaces are. I don't know if there's any consideration to kind of defining more of a way for people to go from the Smokehouse property over here, or if that's just introducing any liability. But my whole point is that it gets them further off of 278, so people aren't trying to cross from one to the other in what could be a busy, people come rolling down 278 and then, oh, there it is. And then they hurry up and turn in there. And then there's mom and dad and the kids crossing the street. I don't know if that's any consideration when we're redoing a landscaping plan to have some type of earmarked, pedestrian crossway there or something. Anyway, that's all I wanted to throw out. Thank you.
Thank you. Due to my little technical issue, I heard most of everything that was discussed, but did we get the colors result?
I don't mean to spearhead this, but it sounded like what Tim was saying, that basically for the window frame, it's either black or that clear anodized. And for what it's worth, since they are storefronts and since there really isn't that much window exposed, I know it's typically not the ARB or DRB's position to like black or white, but perhaps in this particular instance here, if those were our 2 choices, even though it's not called black or white, it's black or silver, I would be okay with the window frames being black for what it's worth, since they're probably not even 2 inches exposed, and and they are large storefronts, so they probably wouldn't be that visible. I think it would be very complementary to the other colors for what that's worth.
Anyone else?
I would just kind of echo what Mr. Molesky just said. I mean, it sounds like we're okay with the light fixtures being black, since there really isn't any bronze element on this project. So to me, if we're going to be okay with the black light fixtures, the storefront being black doesn't bother me either. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My inclination is also for the black over the clear anodized. I mean, I think it's also just throwing it out there, the difference between standard colors and their other color lines. So I mean, it's a price point question of what other YKK colors are available. So But if it has to be between black and clear anodized, two colors which the DRB normally rejects outright, I'm gonna go with black for this project.
I think I tend to agree with the black over the clear. It will kind of enhance the smokehouse dark look and bring that area up to a little bit more uniform design. Anyone else?
I agree with the black on the window frames as well, if versus the clear. And I agree with it kind of integrating a little bit better with the smokehouse property, which is now very apparent there, and it was, and relatively dark building, though I don't think it looks bad in any way, being dark.
All right. Anyone else?
I agree. The clear anodized, I don't think would look good.
All right. Can I have a motion on the application?
All right, I will make a motion. Make a motion regarding Harley-Davidson retail store DRB 002-394-2021 for approval with the following conditions. At the point of clarification, the light fixture above the sign to be type C. Remove the step from the front gable. The gutters and downspouts to match the roof color. Provide a landscape plan for review and approval by staff. The storefront windows are to be black anodized. And I believe that's all I have on my list.
May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Teresa, can you please call roll?
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
Approve.
Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Approve.
Mr. Karstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Fox.
Yes,
Motion carries 7-0.
thank you. Thank you, Tim. Now we move on to the subway canopy DRB 002465-2021 with a presentation from Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, for the record, can you see the screen now?
Yes,
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. This application is requesting reconsideration of the drive-through canopy color that was part of the NOA, the DRB NOA, and that reconsideration is requested because of the existing and proposed vegetation, as well as the location of the canopy behind the structure. Staff recommends denial. The site is outlined in red on the screen in front of you. The intersection is that of Highway 278 and Matthews. You can see the airport runway end up here. The new, relatively new Circle K here. The Parker's site is located here, along with Sea Turtle Marketplace directly across 278 from the site. And then Northridge is on two sides of the site. This is just going to look at the DRB originally approved with conditions renovations to this building, and the applicant, because of this location, is requesting reconsideration after they've installed the canopy. The canopy legs are steel, and I believe the yellow canopy part is powder coated. And so there's some problems painting that powder coating. But here's the drive-through. You can see the back of the building in reference to the existing vegetation. This is the canopy. So again, these canopy legs, per the NOA from September 14th, I believe, will be painted gray. And they're requesting that this yellow canopy here remain. The legs will match the stand for the menu board. Just another view of it. And they're proposing some existing vegetation, or it's not existing, they're proposing some new vegetation. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Is our applicant available?
Press shift, oops. The host, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Am I supposed to speak now?
Yes, you have 10 minutes to present your.
Okay, well, it won't take that long, but, so yes, initially we agreed to paint the canopy legs and the canopy itself in the, it's like a metallic, kind of a beigey gray color that does match the back of the kiosk. And originally we had tried to see about painting the back of the kiosk, but that too is powder coated, so we could not. So what we did instead is we agreed to paint, to try to get a matching paint, which we have done, and paint those legs and the canopy. However, after it got installed, in looking at it, there were a couple of things. First of all, it looked great, and it is yellow at the top. It's the subway yellow, but I think it's very attractive, and I thought it might be worth coming back to you because the legs are are more visible. It's up in the air, the yellow part. The legs are going to be painted because the legs are steel. The top of it is powder coated, which is going to present, it's going to be more difficult to paint that. I will respect what decision you make, but I just thought it would be worth asking you about. And I also, when I took those pictures, what I did visually, I was just trying to see where you could see that. So when you enter the Northridge Center off of Matthews Drive, one of those pictures was that you can't see it at all. Let's see, the one that says on the public street into the shopping center there on the right, that one. You cannot even see, that's already there. You can't see, you can maybe see those legs. You can't see the canopy at all. And those legs will again be beigey gray when they're finished being painted. And then also then I took pictures from the side. I took pictures from various places in the side, from the parking lot that was adjoining that drive-through. I took pictures that way. And the only place that you can actually see that actual canopy is when you're actually in the drive-through itself. This is actually the one right there. That one is taken from the adjoining parking lot, which is like the Home Goods parking lot. And you could barely see it through the trees. And then we were just proposing those, maybe 3 trees there, like a holly or something. I'm not sure what yet, but we're not quite finished. But I was proposing to put some trees there, just not only to soften the back of the canopy and the kiosk area, but also the back of the building, just sort of to give it some camouflage so you don't see the electrical items there on the back of the building, and just make that look nicer. But really, that's all I had to say. I was just asking for a reconsideration because it did look so great when we actually saw it installed, and it picks up the, there's a few little yellow wordings on the actual kiosk on the front of it and on the side. And then our sign will be on the fascia board there. I printed it on there to show you where that will sit, and it will coordinate with that. And it just looks so fantastic that I thought it's worth asking you about. about leaving just the canopy, painting the legs. So that's really all I had to say about it. You know, and I saw that it was powder coated, and that does present some difficulty. And that's all I have to, you know, have to present.
Thank you. We'll start with the discussion by
You're
the
welcome.
board with Mr. Bassett.
Okay, yes, I agree with staff that it's still a bit bright for what we would typically allow, and agree that it should be painted as planned previously. It is obscured quite a bit by some of the foliage and landscaping, but I think also as time goes on, that might thin out, that might get cleared up, cleaned up, and change over time, where the canopy may exist for longer than some of those palm fronds and, you know, scrub your landscaping around the parking area. So I think as that area cleans up, I like the idea of additional landscaping or freshened up landscaping at the back of the building to kind of break up that surface a little bit. But I still think that the yellow, especially kind of contrasting against that red-orange roof, probably needs to go away.
Thank you. Mr. Karstens.
I'm in agreement with staff and with Mr. Bassett in regards to adhering to the previously approved color palette. So,
Thank you. Mr. Molesky.
Yes, thanks. Can you please remind me, what was the approved color of the ceiling of this canopy? Because I don't necessarily.
Well, the whole canopy was supposed to be painted. The canopy and the legs was supposed to be painted. It's like a metallic gray, and it matches the back of the kiosk. The kiosk is the actual touchpad kiosk that's sitting there. And so the back of that is a powder coated gray. And so I finally located some matching paint for that. And we're going to paint those tall legs for the canopy to match that kind of that back support legging on the kiosk. And so that will all be in matching. And then the yellow is, you can see the yellow there. And that's what I was asking if we could leave, because for some reason they've made the canopy is in a powder coated material, like the back of the kiosk is. The legs of that, the supports, that black part that you see there, which we are going to paint in the gray, that is actually a steel and can be painted much more easily than the actual canopy.
Sure. No, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I mean, with all that being said, yeah, my vote would be just to have both the ceiling and the legs all match the other. Then that way it disappears. It's nothing that's conflicting with anything else. And I think from a business point of view as well, perhaps it'll allow your signage, main signage, to stand out and pop out more. As far as the landscaping that was introduced, I also would agree that that's a great idea, just to kind of hide some of the electrical meters and whatnot that are showing up on the wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister.
All right, thank you. While I completely understand your position to the applicant and your rationale is there, it makes sense. I get that this isn't highly visible, but as it's been stated earlier, you know, the design guidelines require us to look at an element on its own without relying on landscape or vegetation to screen something, specifically an architectural element. So while I understand what you're saying, unfortunately, my perspective to uphold the design guidelines, it needs to be the gray, because the yellow is not a nature blending color. So I think it needs to be what was originally approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lippert.
Thank you. I agree with staff and the rest of the board. Maybe taking it one more level, it sounds to me like the color that has been found has not actually been seen by the board or staff. So my recommendation would be that the color that is has been found, as well as the additional plantings, all need to be shown to staff for approval. And the canopy needs to be painted per the last board vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I
Mr.
respond to that?
Please.
Okay, so I got an exact match, ma'am, from the company that makes the kiosk back. They have an exact match. They've already exactly matched that. So I've got just paint that will be the exact color of that. So it's not going to vary. So it's already been approved. So it's not going to vary from the back of the kiosk. That is what it's going to be. It's an exact color match. The company specializes in this color match for the company that makes the kiosk. That's all. I'm just clarifying that there's not going to be any variation on that. That's just what it is.
Ms. Lippert, are you finished?
I'm hearing, I just, not having seen, I guess my hesitation is just, I started hearing about a metallic silver paint or gray paint in there. That brought up my concern for asking that staff approve the actual paint that's now has been found to be a match.
It's already been approved and I called it a metallic silver. It's like a beigey silvery gray. I don't know how to explain it, but it's what's on the back of the kiosk that's not being changed. That is what it is.
Miss Lippert, if it helps, when staff does the CFC, I believe, I don't hold me to it, but I believe the notice of action from the last meeting was that it needed to match the back of the menu board. So if we go out there and it doesn't match the back of the menu board, as you all had said, then we'll work with the applicant to make sure it does match, if that helps.
That does help, thank you, because I was hearing so many different color descriptions on the match. So yes, knowing that and that staff will be able to verify that on site, that certainly helps me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
After reviewing the Town of Hilton Head design guideline, I'm not comfortable supporting the application as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. I drove by and there are spots where you see that canopy and the post very, very much so. And it clashes with the building, it clashes with the red roof. It's very bothersome. So I'm in agreement that canopy needs to go to the gray. I'd also appreciate that you want to, first of all, the building with the new windows looks really good too. I like those over the taco building. The plantings, the 3 trees that you were talking about doing, maybe a holly, those get very large. If I know my stuff, if one of the landscape architects would address that, I would appreciate it.
Well, this request wasn't really for those trees. That was just a possibility if you wanted to use the yellow.
Yeah, I'll respond to Mrs. Foss's comment. It depends on the variety. There's the short answer. They typically can get big, but they're, based on the images, it's really hard to tell exactly how much space there is, but a holly could work. It's just kind of hard to say, but the right variety would be important.
Thank you, Mr. McAllister. Does anyone else have additional comments? May I have a motion on the application?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. I move that we deny the application as it is not supported by the Hilton Head design guide. Thank you.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Teresa, please call the roll.
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
For the motion.
Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Karsten,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes,
Motion to deny carries 7-0.
thank you. Thank you to the applicant. We will move on to new development, Conceptual Heritage Academy Pavilion, DRB 002396-2021. Mr. Karstens will be recusing himself from this project. And now we'll have a presentation from staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is seeking conceptual approval for an open-air picnic pavilion to be built on the lot next to the existing campus. The pavilion will be used for outdoor teaching, eating, and programs. There is also a paved area for basketball and an outdoor demonstration garden area. The structure is heavy timber with CMU stucco columns. The colors and materials are to match the existing buildings on the campus. The roofing will be asphalt to match the other buildings with exposed timber exposed truss structure. Staff recommends conceptual approval with the following conditions. 1, revise the site plan to better function for pedestrians and with the existing building, and I'll note that later. And 2, revise the storm drains to better preserve existing vegetation. We can look at that as well. So the site is outlined in red. The campus, the main campus building is adjacent to it to the right of the site as you're looking at it from New Orleans Road here. You can see Highway 278 or William Hilton Parkway here. And notable is Nunzio's down here, which recently completed the expansion of the parking lot. And across from the site is Wexford Village. Okay, this is the proposed site plan with the trees removed. And you can see that the Heritage Academy building right here. This is the proposed grading and drainage plan. Of concern is this drain line here and the adjacent trees here, as well as here. This one's being removed. So here's the preliminary conceptual site plan. I'm sorry, that's the landscape plan, excuse me. And you can see the plant schedule here. Site elements and details, construction details here. Ceiling and roof plan. Section through the pavilion, as well as an elevation of the side of the pavilion. Another typical wall section. Footers and foundations. Details, construction details. Roof details. And the proposed color board. Again, this is a conceptual, so a color board's not required until final. And my apologies. Staff's concern is that there's a pedestrian path that essentially just dumps out here into the parking lot. The preference would be for some kind of pedestrian connection so that you could walk from the building to this site without going through the parking lot. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Is the applicants available? Are they?
Yes, this is Joe DePaul with PDG Architects.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes.
All right. I think Chris did a good job summarizing the project. Yeah, the color board came up, the text didn't come up, but the shingles are proposed to be weathered wood. And then the columns and beams and rafters, all the exposed wood on the project would be stained Cabot Dune Gray, semi-solid. So we can still have some of that wood grain showing through. And then the stucco is intended to match the building. With regard to the pathway coming from the academy itself through the parking lot, there is some significant landscape built up between the front of the school and the parking lot, and any sort of path that intervened and went into that space. One, there's some significant step down that it would need to work through, and then two, it would take up all of the space between the parking lot and the building. We wouldn't really have room left over for landscape to go back and soften the foundation and parking lot transition there. The idea is that you kind of come out of the front door of the school, down the front steps, and you're just kind of walking, past 3 parking spots through the parking lot and to that path. It'd be easy for teachers to manage. It would kind of keep anybody from any of the alternatives, like going out towards, the entry drive and out to the walking path that's there or anything. So the school wanted to keep it a streamlined solution, just something simple that wouldn't blow the budget, and wanted us connected in there.
Joe, a question from staff. Has there been any consideration or study of a pedestrian connection around the back side of the building?
I'm not really sure what the entry and exit situation is there. I know all the classrooms against that property are just walls. There's not really doors out. And I think the intention is that access to the site would be something when they're having an event, people could park in the parking lot and, use that path to walk up to an event that the school's having in that pavilion. So parents would be able to park in the parking lot, have a clear path through the basketball court and up to the pavilion.
Chris, is there a photo of that front side of the academy showing the landscaping that he's talking about?
I do not have one.
Okay.
I can see what I can do. I can see what I can do. If you'll go give me a little bit, y'all could go ahead.
No worries. Do you have anything further, Joe?
No, nothing further.
Thank you. We'll start with the board discussion with Mr. Brown.
I'm looking at the site development plan, and it shows a 12-inch HDPE pipe along in the adjacent use buffer. And it also appears to show a lot of dirt work in that buffer. And I'm having a tough time understanding that pipe. It has a rim elevation of 5.9, then it just dies into the berm. I agree. I understand this is conceptual, but I would recommend, as you put together your civil drawings, to relocate that storm line outside of the buffer and try to preserve more trees within the adjacent street as well as the adjacent use buffers. And I think that'll do a lot to help this plan. And I agree. When I looked at this project, I think there's an opportunity for better connectivity. I understand that this is ancillary to the academy, and it feels to me like an afterthought. And I would encourage the applicant to look at better connectivity between the 2 properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lippert.
Thank you. I agree with staff and Mr. Brown, and I completely understand this is conceptual. Just wanted to comment on making sure that it's clear that there's no visible conduit and that we see the laying cuts. Thank you.
So there will be some, visible conduit. I think a lot of it can be hidden in between the rafters and the way that the building is constructed. But it is a 2x6 roof deck, exposed roof deck structure. And there will, once you get to the upper part of the ceiling, there's going to be the plan is to have a string of exposed conduit between the fans and the lights that are up in the center of the ridge line. And this building's really far back from the corridor. I don't really see why the school would be forced to hide that conduit.
Madam Chair, can you see, I pulled up just from Google,
Yeah.
an image of the school.
Thank you. I can see that landscaping now. All right, Ms. Lippert, were you finished?
Yes, I mean, I still think it's important. There are ways to tuck conduit behind trim pieces, so I think it is still important to not have visible conduit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister?
Thank you. I think this is a nice project. Don't have a whole lot of comments. I will echo what Mr. Brown said. Just take a look at your storm pipes. I only have one comment on the landscape plan. I would request that you guys pull back the sod a little bit, just out of the buffer along that street. And specifically what caught my eyes, there's a couple, when you drive by, there's a couple of, looks to be fairly nice magnolias if you're looking at the plan, bottom left corner in that buffer. Yeah, right around there, there's like 2 magnolias that are proposed for removal. I would like to see those, make an effort to retain those, unless there's something that I'm missing, like utilities or major grading or reason for removal. I would like to see those magnolias get preserved. But other than that, support staff comments. I understand the challenge of the sidewalk. I would just ask that you maybe just study it, see if there's a better way to do it. I understand where staff's coming from, but also understand the challenges in trying to preserve existing vegetation. So my request would be just take a look at it and see if you can improve the circulation between the 2 parcels. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky?
Yeah, yes, thanks. I really have nothing new to add other than just, like I said, take a better look and try to integrate the 2 properties just to make it easier for the students to flow. It looks like they're going to remain 2 independent properties, right? Nobody's proposing to remove the property line or anything like that. We're just kind of closing off any means of egress to this new property from New Orleans Road, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's security for the school not to have that connection at this time.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett.
Same here, not much else to add. I would reiterate the staff recommendation for a better pedestrian connection between the school and that and the new facility outside of the parking lot area, if at all possible, but nothing new to add.
Thank you. In driving by, that lot is heavily wooded, and it's so pretty. And I agree with Mr. McAllister that if you could save some more trees, that would be very helpful. I also wonder if the playground court and the building could be reversed so that we don't see this big open space from New Orleans. If we keep a lot of the trees, it'll save it. But I think that the pavilion's going to look better than the basketball court. And then I have to agree that I don't want to see visible conduit. It's not appealing to even the people who are visiting the pavilion, not let alone the people who are going to be driving by, etc. I agree. Maybe the sidewalk could go around the back, and that would be safer. I did see the landscaping, and I understand that issue. And we always like to have landscaping between the parking and the building, so that looks nice there. But maybe, as Chris pointed out, there could be a sidewalk that goes around the backside. Maybe you could look at that. Does anyone else have anything else to add or discuss? Would anyone like to make a motion?
How does the board feel about flipping the pavilion and the court like you suggested? I think that's a pretty
valid comment. If I could weigh in on that, The pavilion's located in the back. There's a very nice, I mean, it's a drainage lagoon, but there's a nice view easement when you get to the back there, and the school wants to be able to capture that. The court right now, so this site is heavily wooded when you view it from the street. I've walked all through that. A lot of those trees, so some of those are dead, which are indicated on the plan. A lot of that's undergrowth brush that will be cleaned up, and you know, we're going back with some landscaping in here. But the basketball court does sit in a natural clearing. You know, they're really only taking out 3 trees to put that basketball court in. And when you kind of get past that growth, that's where that clearing is. And then the pavilion is also in that. So we're trying to just take advantage of that clearing space, but definitely wanted to put the pavilion in the back, so you have the water views from the pavilion.
That makes sense to me. So I'm good with. I thought your comment was good, Mrs. Foss, but that I didn't pick up on the lagoon back there. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and basketballs in the lagoon probably isn't a good idea.
And I had the same thought about flipping, but then basketballs in the lagoon and bouncing basketballs to the residential area across the golf course might be annoying too,
Yes.
just from a noise perspective.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have a motion on the application?
Madam Chair, just a comment regarding the conduit. I know that's in our design guide, so I thought that was a really good comment. The tree preservation, that's certainly in our design guide, as well as connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, may I get a motion on the application?
I'll make a motion regarding Heritage Academy Pavilion DRB 002396-2021 for approval with the following conditions: that staff's comments be included in the motion, applicant to conceal conduits in the pavilion, revise the landscape plan to pull the sod out of the buffer, and make an effort to preserve the magnolias in the street buffer. And yes, I believe that's it. I think staff's comments picked up on the other items that were discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Teresa, please call the roll.
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
For the motion.
Ms. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. McAllister,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. We will now move on to board business. Does anyone on the board have anything that they would like to bring up or discuss? I had an interesting thing happen a couple of days ago. I also volunteer at several other places, but sometimes at the Museum of the Coastal Discovery Museum at the front desk. And a woman came in and said, "Kathy." I'm like, "Hi." I didn't know who it was. I didn't recognize her. And she goes, "You're on the design review board." And I still had never seen her before. I didn't know who she was. And she said, "I watch all the Facebook videos and I know who you guys are." And I thought that was an interesting comment because especially with our Zoom meetings, we don't see the other people, but there's a lot of people watching us. There's a lot of people who are observing our discussions, and it's always, and no one is, I'm not charging anyone with doing this, but it's always important to stay very respectful to our applicants and to the general audience. And even though sometimes it's not fun to be so serious all the time, it's better to keep it more formal so that we present a positive and good front to the audience that sees us, even though we can't see them. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Chris, do we have a minor corridor report?
Yes, ma'am, we do. They go as follows. 13 Bow Circle, there was a dumpster enclosure that was approved. On 2 Shelter Cove Lane at Captain's Quarters, there was an awning that was approved. And at 90 Honeyhorn Drive, which is the barn there at, Coastal Discovery Museum in Honeyhorn, there was an awning that was approved, a covered awning, drop-off awning for that building. It's important to note that that awning is on the opposite side of the building from the road, and there's a good amount of vegetation both between it and the water, as well as it and the road. And that concludes staff's minor corridor presentation.
Thank you. I think everyone needs to know that there is no meeting during the week of Thanksgiving. So our next meeting is scheduled for December 14th. And with no other business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Thank you.
Thank you.